surprising trade in the NFL. The Rams have traded cornerback Marcus Peters to the Ravens for linebacker Kenny Young and an undisclosed 2020 draft pick, which, according to our Chris Mortensen, is a fifth-rounder. Peters is in the fifth and final season of his rookie contract. This trade leaves the Rams without their starting corners after Aqib Talib was placed on injured reserve yesterday. You got linebacker Clay Matthews also out on extended period with a broken jaw. Todd Gurley didn't play last week. And this all comes, of course, on the heels of the Rams' longest losing streak under Sean McVay. So joining us now, NFL insider Dan Graziano. I mean, with everything I just relayed in terms of team outlook, what are you hearing about why they would do this, Dan?
Well, Marcus Peters is a player, as you just mentioned, on the final year of his contract. He's making $9 million this year. They have not made any move to sign him long term, so obviously this is not a guy that was in their plans. Trading him now saves him about $5.3 million in cap space for the rest of the year, and we know the Rams to be aggressive in terms of acquiring players. 2 weeks till the trade deadline. Maybe this frees up a little bit of cap space to help them make another move. But yeah, trading a starting corner the day after putting one on IR, that reminds me of dodgeball, bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how that works out for them. But they have Troy Hill, and they have a young rookie, a third rounder from Michigan that hasn't played yet. So they have guys that they can put in there. But don't be surprised to see the Rams poking around on the cornerback market. There's a lot of teams out there looking for corner help. Nagandi's Eagles, I saw the other day, looked like they could use some, but the Rams are now definitely in that group to watch.
I love that you use the dodgeball reference because it kind of seems like the Rams are dodging the playoffs with this move. There will be some familiarity, though, for Peters if he plays this weekend, as the Ravens' opponent this week is his former division rival Seahawks. Dan Graziano, what the latest on what was, I would assume, pretty shocking news here today. Thanks, Dan.
I feel like I talked about it yesterday. I tweeted out a couple of responses to people not understanding, my knowledge of what it came from my brain and for me learning from the situation. I'm talking about it now, and I won't talk about it again because I'll be cheating my teammates by continuing to harp on something that won't benefit us. Trying to win a championship, because that's what we're here for. We're not politicians. I think it's a huge political thing. But we are leaders, and we can step up at times. But there's times where I'm not saying in this particular instance, but if you don't feel like you should speak upon things, you shouldn't have to. We don't know the landscape of the situation. If a week would have went by and then the tweet would have happened, it's easy to say, but we have no idea. So it was a challenging trip for all of us that was in China, and if you were not there, then you just can't relate.
And we continue to follow this developing story. That was LeBron James today when asked about the reaction to his comments and tweets last night on Rockets GM Daryl Morey, the NBA, and China. Meanwhile, here are some pictures today from Hong Kong as anti-government protesters vented their anger toward LeBron, with approximately 200 protesters trampling on his jersey, some burning his jersey. This is exactly what LeBron said last night about Morey's tweet supporting anti-government protesters in Hong Kong. Listen to this.
I'm not here to judge how the league handled the situation. I just think that, when you're misinformed or you're not educated about something, and I'm just talking about, the tweet itself, you never know the ramifications that can happen. We all seen what that did. Not only did for our league, but for all of us in America, for people in China as well. And sometimes you have to think through things that you say that may cause harm, not only for yourself, but for the majority of people. And I think that's just a prime example of that. We all talk about this freedom of speech. Yes, we all do have freedom of speech, but at times there are ramifications for the negative that can happen when you're not thinking about others and you're only thinking about yourself. So I don't want to get into a word or sentence feud with Daryl Morey, but I believe he wasn't educated on the situation at hand, and he spoke, and so many people could have been harmed, not only financially but physically, emotionally, spiritually. So just be careful what we tweet and we say and what we do, even though, yes, we do have freedom of speech, but there can be a lot of negative that comes with that, too.
Okay, after that media session and some public brushback, LeBron clarifying his comments by tweeting this late last night, quote, "Let me clear up the confusion. I do not believe there was any consideration for the consequences and ramifications of the tweet. I'm not discussing the substance. Others can talk about that. My team and this league just went through a difficult week. I think people need to understand what a tweet or statement can do to others. And I believe nobody stopped and considered what would happen. Could have waited a week to send it. Here's Elle with much more on LeBron's initial comments from last night.
For more on LeBron, we bring in Stephen A. Smith. I mean, he's now taking flack internationally and domestically. What do you make of what he said about Daryl Morey's tweet?
Well, it's predictable. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you're LeBron James, you're going to take heat no matter which way you slice it. I don't believe he was right by calling Daryl Morey misinformed, but I do think he was right in highlighting how Daryl Morey may have considered better the consequences far extending beyond himself before he made the comments that he made while teams were in China and the NBA was due to be in China. You have been an executive for the Houston Rockets since 2007. Yao Ming, the president of the Chinese Basketball Federation, played for you. You are fully aware of the Chinese culture, how serious they take their culture, and what the potential is in terms of their reaction to the kind of things that you elected to say in a 7-word tweet. And the fact that you did not do that, or apparently didn't take that into consideration, is something that I think LeBron James was speaking against more so than anything else. But the words that he chose to use, how he opened it for being a bit misconstrued and interpreted in a different fashion, is something, unfortunately, that LeBron James has to own. And I personally feel sorry for him because even though he's a highly intelligent and a highly accomplished individual, it was a middle-aged white man that is an executive for the Houston Rockets that decided to start this whole brouhaha by tweeting out what he tweeted out. Adam Silver is the commissioner. He's obviously been speaking with officials in China about this. We have politicians that do business with China where they're fully aware of everything that's going on between China and Hong Kong. And to me, to put LeBron James in this kind of situation and demand that his voice be heard in a matter like this, I think is incredibly unfair to him.
Then why do it at all? Because it feels like he felt some type of way pressure to speak out as he has become the kind of conscience for social justice in the NBA.
My personal opinion is this. Obviously, if you are the face of the NBA, you're an iconic figure the way that he is, that would be pressure. But I also want to emphasize that as a black man, of course, he's feeling some pressure. When Trayvon Martin, that happened with Trayvon Martin years ago, and he was killed by a wannabe cop, for crying out loud, and Mr. Zimmerman. LeBron James spoke on that issue. Tamir Rice in Cleveland, when he was ultimately killed, LeBron James spoke out about that. When Colin Kaepernick and that situation came about, LeBron James spoke out about that. So if you are a marquee athlete, an iconic figure, a global brand who happens to be black, and you take the liberty to speak out on issues that permeate our society and our culture, well, then folks are looking, even though it's in China and it's between China and Hong Kong, the issue is human rights. And so when you speak about civil rights, or you speak about the absence of sensitivity and what have you to human beings in this country, how can you then not extend yourself to issues such as this? I have not spoken to LeBron about it, of course, but I think it's one of those situations where it's entirely plausible that that might have been his mindset. And as a black man in the public eye, I can tell you this always happens, even if it's something that extends far beyond, our lines to some degree. When you are a black man in a public position, or you're a public figure, religiously, there are people that are mandating that you be heard on a particular issue because you're perceived as somebody who should be giving voices to the voiceless. And I think that level of pressure is what we're talking about when we ask the question about why did LeBron James feel compelled to speak on this issue.
Well, listen, we certainly didn't think a week removed from the start of the NBA season we'd be talking about geopolitical crisis, but we will talk actual basketball with Stephen A. We're going to talk about Zion. Is he headed towards Rookie of the Year? That's coming up in just a little bit.
All right.
Well, back to the NFL. Few things are inevitable every October. The leaves changing. Pumpkin spiced everything. And the NFL world asking, should Jason Garrett get fired? Losers of 3 straight, including to a winless Jets team whose quarterback spent the last 4 weeks recovering from mono. Jerry Jones defended his coach Sunday, and again today when prompted about his job security.
We've got a lot invested in Jason Garrett. He's evolved into what I think is a top coach. He would be a very sought-after coach if he were out here in the open market. So there's a lot of pluses there. He brings a lot to the table, and I can genuinely say that that is not a thought that I'm having, so it would be unfair to our fans for me to have any indication about what I may think the future is as far as head coach.
Cowboys are back in a familiar spot, 500. Sunday will be the 37th game in Garrett's career he's coached with exactly a 500 record. That's the most by any coach in the last decade, and it didn't bode well for two others on this list, Mike McCarthy and Rex Ryan. Here's Tony and Mike, PTI, on Jerry's comments.
All right, Wilbon, is Jerry Jones right that Jason Garrett would be, quote, very sought after, unquote, if he were on the open market?
When I first heard this, I thought this is Jerry being Jerry and overstating something. And then you start to just look at the list of head coaches in the NFL right now and go to the group that is rock solid. Guys who've won Super Bowls, going to get Hall of Fame votes. Nobody's getting rid of them. Belichick, Harbaugh, Tomlin, Gruden, Peterson, Peyton, Pete Carroll. That's 7 guys.
Right.
If you want to go the next 3, guys who've been to like a title game or multiple, Andy Reid, Ron Rivera, and there's somebody else, Mike Zimmer, okay?
Right.
So you got those. That's 10. That's a total of 10. And even if you take McVay and Shanahan, the young, genius population, and you separate them out, you give them benefit of the doubt, even though they haven't done anything yet.
Well, one guy went to the Super Bowl.
Didn't win.
Yeah.
That's a total of 12.
Right.
That means there's 20 jobs out there that are guys who can still be fired. So, yes, Jerry Jones is right.
So this is interesting because there's probably not a coach in the league who, on a yearly basis, hears he should be fired more than Jason Garrett.
That's right.
Over a 10-year period. Every single year.
Every year.
Even if he's contending for a division championship and he's won 3.
13-3.
Everybody says, well, it's time to fire Jason Garrett. Now, my answer to this question is, because he's 80-59 in his career and he's gone to the playoffs 3 times. My answer to the question is, would he be sought after? Yes. There are teams that would want him. Would he be very sought after? I'm backing away from
What
very.
was very? 6-17?
I'm backing away from a lot of long lines here.
Out of 20?
I think he will be sought after for sure.
Yeah.
And I think he is a worthy coach.
Yeah.
He's coached in probably the hardest place to coach for the hardest owner. He's coached in the largest market in terms of football craziness in the country.
One central question.
Yeah.
If the Cowboys lose at home this week to the Eagles, is he going to keep his job?
Jerry hasn't fired him yet and says he won't. So
that was definitive. That's it.
I don't have
We're
definitive.
done. Back to you.
I don't have definitive. I'm too old.